The cold came without warning, that January night, the kind that turns breath to ice and empties streets by dusk. Most people were already home, curtains drawn against the wind when the man's headlights swept across his neighborhood. He'd worked late again, too tired to notice much beyond the road ahead. But then something caught his eye. A small shape beneath the street lamp, motionless against the snow. He slowed the car. Probably just trash, he thought. A discarded bag. Maybe a frozen newspaper. But something made him stop. Something about the way it lay there, too still, too small. He pulled over and stepped out into the wind. The cold hit him immediately, sharp enough to sting. He walked toward the street lamp, boots crunching through ice, and crouched low. What he saw made his breath catch. It wasn't trash. It was a kitten, or what he thought was a kitten at first. Tiny, curled on its side, fur crusted with frost. Then he looked closer. The markings were wrong. Too bold, too deliberate. Dark spots scattered across a tawny coat, tufted ears standing rigid despite the cold, paws too large for the body. This wasn't a house cat. This was something wild. A bobcat kitten, barely 8 weeks old, lying frozen beneath a street lamp in the middle of a suburban street. He didn't hesitate, didn't stop to think about what he was doing or whether he should. He just unzipped his coat, scooped the tiny body into his arms, and wrapped it against his chest. The kitten didn't move, didn't make a sound. Its body was stiff, cold as stone. That terrified him more than anything. He ran back to the car, one hand cradling the bobcat, the other fumbling for his keys. The engine roared to life. Heat blasted from the vents as he tore through empty streets toward home, the small weight against his ribs the only thing he could feel. When he burst through his front door, the house was dark and quiet. He didn't bother with lights, didn't stop to close the door all the way. He went straight to the bathroom, flipping on the overhead light with his elbow, and grabbed everything he could find. Heating pads from the closet, towels fresh from the dryer, a cardboard box from the recycling bin. His hands moved on instinct, setting up a makeshift bed on the tile floor. He laid the bobcat down gently, arranging the towels around its body without covering its face. Hypothermia was delicate. He knew that much. Warm it too fast and the shock could kill it. Too slow and it wouldn't matter. So he worked carefully, adjusting the heating pad to low, tucking fleece around the small frame, checking for breath every few seconds. The kitten's chest rose, barely, a shallow flutter beneath spotted fur. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Midnight came and went. The man sat on the cold tile, back against the tub, watching. The bobcat's breathing remained shallow but steady. Its eyes stayed closed. Frost slowly melted from its whiskers, tiny droplets forming along the edge of its nose. He told himself this was temporary. One night, just enough time to stabilize it. In the morning he'd call a wildlife rescue center. Someone trained for this. Someone who knew what they were doing. But even as he thought it, something felt uncertain. Then he heard the soft padding of paws in the hallway. Milo appeared in the doorway, a gray tabby with white socks and amber eyes that caught the bathroom light. The man had adopted him 2 years ago from a shelter. Milo was gentle, almost impossibly so. He'd never hissed at anything. Not the vacuum, not the vet, not even the neighbor's overly friendly dog. But this was different. This was a wild predator lying 3 feet away from him. The man expected Milo to freeze, to flatten his ears and bolt back down the hall. Instead, Milo stepped into the bathroom, slowly, carefully, head low, whiskers forward, his eyes locked on the cardboard box. The man held perfectly still, not wanting to startle him. Milo circled the box once, nose twitching as he processed the unfamiliar scent. Then he sat down, just sat there, 3 feet away, watching the bobcat with that silent, unblinking focus cats reserve for things that matter. Minutes passed. The house was silent, except for the hum of the heating pad, and the faint whistle of wind against the window. Milo didn't move, didn't look away. The man wondered what he was thinking. If cats thought at all in moments like this, or if they just felt. Then Milo stood. He approached the edge of the box, leaning in slowly, and sniffed the bobcat's ear. The man's hand hovered in the air, ready to pull him back if things went wrong. But Milo didn't bite, didn't swat. He just lowered his head and began to groom. Slow, deliberate licks along the bobcat's frozen ears. Gentle, methodical, the same way he groomed himself every morning. The man stared, unable to process what he was seeing. This didn't make sense. Cats were territorial, instinct-driven. They defended their space. They didn't nurture wild predators. They didn't adopt creatures that would one day overpower them. And yet Milo kept grooming. The bobcat's ear twitched. Just once, a faint sign of life returning. Milo paused, eyes narrowing as if checking, then continued his work. His rough tongue moved carefully over the delicate fur, warming it, cleaning away the frost. The man watched in stunned silence, questions piling up faster than he could sort them. Why wasn't Milo afraid? What instinct told him this was safe? And stranger still, why did it feel like Milo understood something the man didn't? By 2 in the morning, the bobcat's breathing had deepened. Its body, no longer rigid with cold, relaxed into the warmth of the towels. The frost was gone. Its paws twitched slightly, as if dreaming, and Milo, exhausted from his vigil, curled up at the very edge of the box. One gray paw stretched out toward the bobcat as if keeping watch. The man stayed awake until dawn. He couldn't look away, couldn't stop turning the moment over in his mind. He'd expected to save a life tonight. He hadn't expected to witness something he couldn't explain, something that felt ancient, instinctual, a bond forming between wild and tame that defied every rule he thought he understood. Outside, the storm finally broke. Pale morning light crept through the blinds, cold and gray, and in the quiet of that small bathroom, 2 creatures, one wild, one domestic, rested side by side. The man whispered to himself, barely audible over the hum of the heating pad, "Just one night." But even then, watching Milo's chest rise and fall in rhythm with the bobcats, he suspected it was already more than that. Morning light filtered through the bathroom window, pale and soft. The man woke with a stiff neck, still propped against the tub where he'd dozed off sometime before dawn. He blinked, disoriented for a moment, then remembered. The bobcat. He sat up quickly, eyes going to the cardboard box. What he saw stopped him cold. Milo was curled tightly around the bobcat, his body forming a protective circle. The wild kitten's head rested against Milo's chest, tucked beneath his chin. Both were breathing slowly, deeply, peacefully. The bobcat's paws twitched in sleep, tiny claws flexing against the towel. It looked stronger now. The shallow, labored breathing from last night had steadied into something rhythmic, alive. The man didn't move, didn't want to break whatever this was. Over the next few days, something extraordinary unfolded. The bobcat began to recover, slowly at first, then with startling speed. Its eyes opened, bright and alert. It started lifting its head, testing its legs, stretching with the careful precision of something remembering how to be wild. And through it all, Milo never left its side. He became the bobcat's constant guardian. When the kitten cried, soft, high-pitched mews that sounded more like bird calls than cat sounds, Milo would meow back loudly, insistent, until the man came to check. When the bobcat tried to stand on wobbly legs, Milo stayed close, his body a steady wall to lean against. At night, he curled around it, warming it with his own heat. The man tried to separate them once, just to be safe. He moved the bobcat's box to the spare room, closed the door, and left Milo in the hallway. Within minutes, Milo was scratching at the door, crying with a desperation the man had never heard before. He gave in, opened the door, watched as Milo bolted straight to the box, and settled back in beside the bobcat, grooming its ears as if nothing had happened. After that, the man stopped trying. The bobcat grew stronger each day. It began eating solid food, small pieces of chicken at first, then more. It chewed on furniture legs, testing its teeth, learned to walk with confidence, then to run, to pounce. Milo seemed to teach it the language of house cats, the slow blink greeting, the gentle head bump, the way to play without hurting. Yet even as it learned these soft behaviors, the bobcat's wild instincts showed through. It climbed the curtains with shocking speed, stalked invisible prey across the living room floor, pounced with a precision no house cat ever had. And through it all, Milo stayed patient, stayed close. The man watched them together, the gray tabby and the spotted wildcat, and felt something shift inside him. He told himself this was temporary, one night, maybe a week, just until a rescue center could take over. But now, watching Milo groom the bobcat's face while it purred, a sound somewhere between a house cat's rumble and something deeper, something ancient, he realized the truth. This wasn't temporary anymore. Something unusual was unfolding in his home, something beautiful, and he had no idea what to do about it. 3 weeks passed, and the bobcat transformed before their eyes. Its legs lengthened, muscles forming beneath spotted fur that had grown thick and glossy. Its paws, once delicate and kitten small, now spread wide with strength. When it played with Milo, the games grew rougher, wrestling that sent them tumbling across the carpet, mock battles that ended with the bobcat pinning Milo to the floor. But Milo never flinched, never hissed or retreated. He trusted the wild creature completely, even as it grew larger, stronger, more powerful with each passing day. The man knew what he had to do. He made the call on a Tuesday morning. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center answered on the second ring. He explained everything: the rescue, the recovery, the unexpected bond with his house cat. The woman on the phone listened carefully, then told him what he already knew. The bobcat was healthy enough now, strong enough. It was time to start the transition back to the wild. He hung up and stared at his phone for a long time. That afternoon, he built an enclosure in the backyard, tall chain-link fencing, platforms for climbing, branches arranged to mimic forest terrain. He worked quietly, hammering posts into frozen ground while Milo watched from the window. The bobcat pressed against the glass beside him. When it was finished, the man opened the back door and let the bobcat explore. It stepped outside cautiously at first, nose twitching as it processed 1,000 new scents. Then instinct took over. It moved with confidence, stalking through the enclosure with the fluid grace of something born for this. It climbed the platforms effortlessly, leaping between levels with breathtaking precision, pounced on insects crawling through dead leaves, scanned the tree line beyond the fence, ears swiveling toward sounds the man couldn't hear. This was what it was meant for. The man could see it clearly now. The bobcat belonged out here, not in a house with carpeted floors and warm radiators. But every evening, as the sun set and the temperature dropped, the bobcat would stop its prowling. It would walk to the glass door, press its face against it, and wait. Inside, Milo would appear on the other side, paws up on the glass, meowing softly. The two would touch noses through the barrier, separated by something thin and fragile and impossible to cross. The man stood in his kitchen watching them, and felt something break inside his chest. Was he doing the right thing, preparing this creature for a wild life it deserved? Or was he breaking a bond that mattered more than instinct? A bond Milo had formed that first frozen night, when he chose compassion over fear. The bobcat grew stronger every day, more independent, more wild, and the harder the decision became. Spring arrived slowly, thawing the frozen ground inch by inch. The bobcat was no longer a kitten. It was powerful now, confident, undeniably wild. Its spotted coat gleamed in the sunlight. Its muscles rippled beneath the fur with every movement. The wildlife staff came on a warm April morning, experienced hands and calm voices, ready to guide the transition. The man and Milo walked to the enclosure one last time. The bobcat approached the fence, pressing its face through the chain link. Milo touched his nose to it gently, then began grooming its cheek through the gaps. The bobcat closed its eyes, rumbling that deep ancient purr. The man crouched beside them, one hand on Milo's back, the other reaching through to scratch behind the bobcat's tufted ears. Then the wildlife staff opened the gate. The bobcat looked back once, at Milo, at the man, at the house beyond, then turned and walked into the forest. No hesitation, just steady, purposeful steps into the trees until the spotted coat disappeared among the shadows. The gate closed, the truck drove away, and the man carried Milo back inside. The house felt different, emptier. Milo wandered from room to room crying softly, a sound the man had never heard from him before. He checked the enclosure, searched beneath furniture, sat by the back door for hours, waiting. The man tried to comfort him, but nothing helped. Days passed. Milo barely ate, barely slept. The man began to wonder if he'd made a terrible mistake. 3 weeks later, he checked the trail camera he'd mounted near the tree line. He scrolled through the footage. Deer, raccoons, nothing unusual. Then he stopped. There, time-stamped from the previous night, stood the bobcat, bigger now, healthier than ever, coat thick and wild, but unmistakably the same. It stood at the edge of the woods facing the house, perfectly still, just watching. And in the audio, faint but clear, 2 soft meows, responding to Milo's cries from the porch. The man's hands trembled as he opened the back door that evening. Milo bolted outside immediately, running to the edge of the yard, and there, stepping out from the trees, was the bobcat. It didn't approach fully, stayed wild, stayed cautious, but it came close enough for Milo to reach, close enough to touch noses, to exchange that slow, deliberate blink, a greeting between old friends. Then, as quietly as it had appeared, the bobcat turned and slipped back into the forest. Milo watched until the trees swallowed the spotted coat completely. Then he walked back inside, calm now, and curled up in his favorite spot by the window. The man closed the door and whispered into the quiet house. He stayed only one night, but the bond they'd formed would last a lifetime.